Lawley program. My name is Brock Lawley. I am your fearless host. This is a show we tackle the news headlines, fitting out the leftist alphabet soup, Democrat Party, media complex, lies, the chaff that they are from the golden wheat of truth. I serve that truth up to your ADD reality television show minds on a silver platter. That's what the show is in a nutshell. Let's jump into the stories, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I suppose Comey has got to be at the top of the list, and just never-ending death by a million fictitious cuts that is the Democrat media complex or the opposition media or whatever you want to call them. It's just, it doesn't really matter at this point what it is. It doesn't. I mean, if you're objective at all, it doesn't matter. It's all just a way of undermining what it is very clear that much of the DC apparatus, much of the media, the entire extreme Democrat Party, they just see Donald Trump as illegitimate. There was an election. They lost that election. But they truly have convinced themselves that he's illegitimate. And, if you have any dealings at all with the Democrat mind, this is just the most dangerous thing of all, is that when they convince themselves of something, there is no purging it. It's like in their mind, this guy is just unfit for office. It's always been the case. They'll claim he doesn't have the right temperament. You hear this stuff all the time. They'll claim he doesn't mirror the politicians of old or the things that we should consider ourselves to be comfortable with leaders, which, in my opinion, is plastic banana, very calculated, get nothing done because you're all owned, you're on corporate shrills. It's the whole, the entire packaging that DC likes, so you can go along to get along. That's what's acceptable. So if you understand that frameworking, if you understand that predetermined premise, it doesn't matter what the thing is, right? Their thing is Russia. And really, I think it's appropriate just to stop and pause on that word, Russia. It's not a thing. There hasn't been any evidence to support anything claimed around this entity that is just Russia for the Democrats. It's just this nebulous thing that they get to hurl accusations at, unsubstantiated accusations. The Washington Post just publishes a story 3 to 6 hours later. It's completely refuted, unnamed sources. So they just level charges. This is all they're doing. This is what they've done since their devastating election loss. The Democrat Party, the Democrat media complex, they just level charges, serious charges. They just continue to level them. There's no substantiating them, but enough of the machine just cycles it, just pumps it like it's blood through the body politic. There doesn't need to be any substantiating evidence to it because it's the claim. They just keep pounding it and pounding it and pounding it, and all of it to just delegitimize. That's the entire point of it. None of these claims will be substantiated, and it doesn't matter. That's not the point. And they're all okay with this. I mean, you got an administration under siege. I mean, that's truly what you have. And then Washington's okay with it because Donald Trump is that much of a threat to that city. And not a threat as they explain it. No, a threat to them, not a threat to you, a threat to them. That's been the case since jump. That's why you have seen an unprecedented unification of that corrupt city, that corrupt East Coast city, to destroy this. It truly is. I paint this analogy for you because I think it's accurate. It's truly like having an organism, and then you drop in that organism some alien bacteria or something. What's that organism going to do? It's going to rally around it for its own self-preservation, and it is just going to relentlessly attack that bacteria. I think that's a great analogy. Donald Trump did not come up through their ranks. He did not learn their rules. He has not crossed the T's, dotted the I's. He's not done the things you got to do to be able to prance around as, a leader or prance around as a politician. That's what this stuff is all rooted in, guys. It's all just to kick in the knees of an administration that is a threat to the ever-growing bureaucracy and the corruption of Washington, D.C. And for the Democrats, it's just an impediment to power. So in many ways, Donald Trump rubs them a little bit the wrong way because I think they realize he's especially a threat because he's very unusual for a Republican. But the Democrats would just destroy anything that impeded leftism. I mean, that's just their modus operandi. I mean, Democrat leftism, anything outside of that bubble is just evil and needs to be destroyed. It really wouldn't have mattered the president. I think there might have been some hurdles and some different strategies. Like Donald Trump is so unusual as a politician that a lot of the standard sort of the way you would normally destroy a politician, you're just hurling racist accusations at them, whatever the case may be. Some of that stuff just didn't stick with him. So now, they just kind of all rallied around this Russia thing in the hopes that the American people will just slowly it's like water on rock, right? It's just relentless and relentless. And the thinking is just the seed of doubt, right? Just the seed of doubt. They know you're not going to do any legwork. They know you're not going to fact check any of this stuff. They know they could just run at the mouth. You get these irresponsible, hacks on television, and they can just paint fictions, Potemkin villages in your mind, and then they just continue to feed that beast. That's what you're seeing. That is what is happening. The real question a thinking person should ask is, what would cause this entire corrupt city to attack with such relentless, almost fever pitch, Donald Trump? I think, particularly when you see what Washington has done, and particularly when you see how exposed in their corruption they are. The last election with WikiLeaks just blew the lid off of Washington, D.C. Why would this city attacking some entity give any credibility to any of their claims? Remind yourself what you actually know, right? The media lied all through the primaries, all through the general. That's just exposed. The Democrat Party was drenched in corruption, drenched in controversy. Their candidate drenched in legitimate corruption. The irony of the Russian thing has always been that this is textbook projection from the Democrat Party. What we know about Russia is that it was actually the Clintons and the Democrat Party and even Barack Obama's administration that was actually, there's substantial evidence of them actually colluding with the Russians. You have Barack Obama on film saying as much. You have Hillary Clinton with all kinds of shady deals with the Russians. We know for a fact as the American people that Hillary Clinton profited very, very well by selling the natural resources of the United States and uranium to the Russians. We know this. And yet all these claims about Donald Trump, never substantiated, nobody on the record. It's an unbelievable thing. But that being said, the injustice or lack of truth found in a thing certainly doesn't mean the thing doesn't have gravitas or weight or momentum. But largely because what we're really talking about is the Republican Party here. And whenever you talk about the Republican Party, you're talking about cowardice of the highest order. So regardless of the fact that this is unsubstantiated, we know a couple things about the establishment Republicans. We know they hate Donald Trump. That's not a good sign here, because rather than standing up to the Democrat media complex, to the opposition media, to the Democrat Party, and saying this is nonsense, this is ridiculous, strategic, oh so coincidental, quote unquote, leaks coming from the intelligence branches, which is essentially the Democrats have sort of turned the bureaucracy into sort of a resistance movement, a coup within the government. I mean, this is just unprecedented, ridiculous nonsense. Again, the goal is just pull the rug of legitimacy out from under the president to stop him from implementing his agenda, which, by the way, I just want to remind you, was voted on. The American people heard that agenda with splendid spectacle in the Donald and voted for the implementation of that agenda. That's how elections work. Not only that, but they give the Senate and the House to the Republicans. Clearly, if elections mean anything, this is a mandate for an agenda, for a values-driven agenda. But that agenda is not leftism. And it really isn't much more complicated than that. That's the reason for all of this dog and pony show. It really is, ladies and gentlemen. I don't really know why Trump's putting up with it. If I were Donald Trump, I would go to complete war with the media. Yes, they're going to throw a fit. It's going to be, oh my gosh, it's going to be fever pitch. It's going to be end of the world type rhetoric. He has destroyed the press briefings. He has destroyed the press briefings. We're not allowed to, perpetrate and microphone our clearly made up hackery every day on television. The end of all that is good in America. I mean, that would be, of course, their choir, number of choice. But who cares? He should completely go to war with the media, destroy them. He should move heaven and earth to find these leaks. He should fire every single person that is even remotely connected to the previous administration. I mean, fire, even if they're somewhat of a good track record, just to cover all your bases, fire every single person in the bureaucracy. I mean, go through like a witch hunt and fire every single person. Start again, move forward. I mean, that's really what he should do. It's just death by 1,000 cuts, and in my opinion, it's his only recourse at this point. There will be no justice, right? There's not going to be any justice found in any of this stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to different stories here. North Korea, while this kabuki theater is going on, while the media is fixating on Comey or whatever the left, the leftist Trump hysteria is today, North Korea fires better missiles, more capable, competent missiles. Media doesn't care. Zero coverage. Comey, who they just said like a week and a half ago should be fired. The fact that he was fired, this is the number one turn of head story. It's just remarkable lies, remarkable intellectual dishonesty, remarkable lack of integrity. Wall Street Journal has that piece. A new study says marriage and children severely hamper a woman's career. This accounts for the large portion of quote-unquote pay gap. So if women would just stop having babies in this horrible way, these breeders, this sexist injustice known as procreating and furthering the species of humanity. Oh, how revolting, says the leftist mind, the feminist mind. Marriage and children hampering a woman's career. Hampering a woman's career. The token leftist social engineering feminist would be something like Amy Schumer. I mean, Amy Schumer is like radiating toxicity. This is the most miserable person. While this woman lays her head down at night, this is not going to be peace and contentment. This is going to be a bottle of vodka to wash the pain away. This is the poster board of leftism. I wish people would more often look beyond the story itself and look at like the rotted out, just poison, diseased roots of every leftist idea. What manifests, what comes from it. Anyway, ridiculous story in the New York Times. And more roll your eyes, and yet, it's pretty substantive, I think. The federal government under Barack Obama funds a climate change musical. This came from the national science budget. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost $700,000 on a climate change musical, ladies and gentlemen. I ask you, who is the party of anti-science? This isn't science. This is dogma. This is religion. This is insane. Was there any hysteria about any of this? And by the way, this stuff happened weekly under that administration. Weekly. Ladies and gentlemen, Betty DeVos, the person, the blonde-haired woman who the left just hates because she, what she's guilty of? She wants school choice. No, I'm serious. That's the crime that the woman is guilty of. That's why you're allowed to hate her with the fire and radiation of 1,000 suns on the left. Do you know what she spent her lifetime, and a lot, and I mean millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars? Do you know what Betty DeVos spent her entire life's work and a vast portion of her fortune trying to do? Help black students go to college. Did you know that? And by the way, she was very successful at doing that. And as a result, the black students turned their back on her, literally, by the way. Literally. And of course, this went viral. And the left mockery machine is like, look at these students turning their back on Betsy DeVos. Can you believe this? Yeah, I can believe that this level of, lack of civility is happening on the left. I can imagine that anybody who has a microphone or speaks on a college campus that isn't a far leftist is shut down or humiliated or mocked. Again, I want to repeat, Here's who this woman actually is, even though your sick, twisted media won't tell you this. This is a woman who spent her time, her energy, her passion, and her fortune helping the least of these, the disenfranchised, find opportunity. That's who this woman really is. Now ask yourself who the media is making her out to be. It should shame these people. It truly should. It truly should. The murder of a reputation is just as bad in many ways to a murder of a life. And the left is guilty of it daily. They're like serial killers of people's reputations, just as a means to an end. Arizona has the audacity to allow people without teaching degrees to teach as a solution to a lot of their education problems. The Washington Post is appalled. The New York Times is appalled. The left is appalled. I'm thrilled. Long overdue. Long overdue. I love out-of-the-box solutions to these education problems. I love people teaching kids that haven't been propagandized by teaching schools. I love busting up corrupt money laundering into the Democrat Party coffers, teacher unions. You know, it's very, very, I do grant you this. It is very, very bad for the education complex, but it's very, very good for the kids. And of course, that's where I have my attention. That's why I believe in school choice. That's why I believe in school freedom. Washington Post has that piece. New York Times sneers, and I mean sneers, at Eastern Oregon residents, conservatives, by the way, who refuse to raise taxes. They have this big piece. Yeah, these people they have this crazy idea like they're taxed enough and like this evil government is wasting money. But literally to read this, the New York Times mocks and sneers at the thought that this just shouldn't be a given. Of course they should be taxed more. Your money, your giftings, your labor, that's just the states. How is there even two opinions on this, says the New York Times. Good news, ladies and gentlemen, a conservative media company, Sinclair, expands its reach into the big cities. New York Times hates this, has a horrifying piece. This was a page one story during the weekend paper. Conservative voices expanding their reach in a land with free speech. How can this be? This is horrific. Let's turn to our playbook. What horrific things can we say? Well, right here it says we could call them a Nazi. We could also call them, it appears on here, if this is correct, we could call them a skinhead. And if that doesn't work, perhaps we could call them the KKK. Yes, all those things are options here. Or what are these people actually guilty of? Well, nothing really. They've just expanded their business into other markets that want their programming. But again, I refer to the leftist playbook where you see these three bullet points. You know, it's Nazi, it's skinhead, and it's KKK. Ridiculous. By the way, on a note of practicality, if you want to, protect yourself from ransomware, Wall Street Journal has a really, really cool piece. There's a lot of that going on now. They'll hijack your computer and then they want ransom for you to get it back. And a lot of people obviously do a lot of work on their computer. So it's a big deal. You know what I mean? They want to keep that information. They're even willing to pay for it. There's a great piece on that. So if that's applicable to you, I know that's out there. In the interwebs, Trump should recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. I think the time's come. I really do. I mean, obviously, only if Netanyahu wants to do that, in my opinion. If that makes more trouble for him, then I guess that wouldn't be beneficial. But I think he should full in, chips all the way in on Israel. For everyone's safety, ladies and gentlemen, we should get rid of first-class cabins. That's the latest thing from the left. This, essentially, as I read this article, it's basically envy of the rich. There's all these people attacking first-class passengers now. You can inevitably see these social justice warriors doing that, can't you? The madness of the left never stops. You think it's going to stop, right? Today, you're like, man, you hear stuff like this, attacking first-class passengers. You're thinking, oh my gosh, tomorrow it'll be crazier. Oh, tomorrow it'll be crazier. They know no bounds. There is no depth of just poisonous horribleness that the left will not plumb. There just isn't. I hate to tell you, The Economist has that piece. Left goes berserk over election fraud commission. Why would they even object? Don't we want to investigate election fraud? So I just want to paint you this picture, ladies and gentlemen. Out of one side of the leftist Democrat media complex's mouth, they're claiming that Russia hijacked our election. Of course, again, there's no proof. Russia influenced the election. There's a whole bunch of wording of this, right? I guess if you ask them what they're talking about, the only thing they can tell you is that Hillary Clinton's emails were exposed. That's not hijacking an election, but nonetheless. So that's what they're talking about. But out of the other side of their mouth, any kind of actual election fraud. So there's an election fraud commission because we know there is election fraud. And you know why they don't like this election fraud commission? Because the Democrats are committing election fraud. We know this because precincts come in way over the percentage of people that are there. Dead people are voting. Illegal immigrants are voting. They are absolutely beside themselves about the fact that there's an election fraud commission while telling us that an election was stolen by the Russians. Do you see what I mean? These people have no principles. There's no the thing they say isn't even correlated to anything. It's just stuff they crap out of their mouth. They don't mean anything. It's all just, this isn't leftism. This isn't leftism. That's essentially always what they're saying. I mean, you know, the words change, the accusations change, but they just say things. They say things because they think they're going to move the emotional needle, or they think they're going to be able to call somebody a racist. They don't mean anything they say. High school yearbook, ladies and gentlemen, canceled. Because there's a quote in the yearbook, build that wall. That's a student that put that there, build that wall. So the entire yearbook is canceled because it's found to be racist and offensive. Everything must be cleansed by the Orwellian left. This is in the Charlotte Observer. You can't say build that wall. The Democrat Party, the free speech haters, the Orwellian thought control police disapprove of that statement. So the entire yearbook needs to be scrubbed. All I can tell you is that this stuff is going on. Is this the world you want to live in? If not, fight them. New professors must be sworn in, like a hand over the Bible, ladies and gentlemen, as a devotion to diversity. 20 colleges now have signed on to this. They need to swear in, like almost like a cult-like ceremony. Now, this is the great irony. That's freaky enough that there's a litmus test, or that you have to be, shake in blood, or whatever this leftist cult nonsense is, skull and bones on the left here. But this is even more ironic when you figure there's zero diversity of thought in these universities. What do these people, how do they define diversity? You should ask them that sometime. When they throw these sort of catchphrases around, dig a little deeper. Pepper them with some questions. What do you mean by diversity? Do you have any college professors who are conservatives? Do you have any college professors that do not drink straight from the jug of leftist Kool-Aid 24/7? Because if you don't, wait for it, you don't have diversity. California's suicide drive to ban all fossil fuels. 7 paragraphs from the bottom takes you to the gist of the problem. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a leftist religion. I encourage you to read this piece. LA Times has it. They're willing to destroy business, prosperity. Quite frankly, they're willing to destroy anything for their cult. The left and the never-Trumpers obsess over what Trump eats now. That's how bad it's gotten. His eating habits render him impeachable to the left. Again, my advice to Donald Trump is run roughshod right over them. Go to war with them. No mercy. And if he fails to do that, the Republican Party will throw him overboard. The media will chew him up. My contention is that the American people know what's going on. They see what's going on. But Trump needs to start fighting them. Full throttle, full-fledged, engage with these talking heads in the Democrat media complex, which is this essentially it's a White House under siege from a Democrat bureaucracy-controlled coup. That's what's going on. Ladies and gentlemen, be a people of fortitude, character, and abounding courage.